You've done it again. You're standing directly in front of someone you've met at least 3 times. They smile, step forward, and their name is completely gone. It isn't even hovering at the tip of your tongue. It's just absent, like it was never filed in the first place. The next 12 seconds require a masterclass in improvised theater. You subtly angle your body and perform a series of vague, enthusiastic nods, desperately hoping for a social exit strategy. Internal panic sets in as you wait for a phone to ring, a third party to intervene, or any external event that might accidentally reveal their identity before you're found out. While this feels like a personal failing, this universal micropanic represents a highly specific cognitive bottleneck that occurs long before you even realize you've forgotten. We tend to equate this memory lapse with rudeness or a lack of care. There's a silent, lingering assumption that if you were smarter or more attentive, the name would have stuck. For the person on the other end, the sting is real. Repeatedly having your name forgotten feels like a message that you didn't matter enough to occupy a permanent space in someone else's mind. The brain is actually adhering to a strict set of evolutionary priorities. It is functioning exactly as it was designed to, favoring certain types of information over others. To dismantle the shame of forgetting, we have to perform a cognitive autopsy on this narrow slice of time, the 10-second window of a first introduction. The failure begins in the working memory of your prefrontal cortex. This is the temporary holding space your brain uses to process immediate reality. During an introduction, this node is under massive strain. It reads micro-expressions, registers tone, and calculates social standing. It assesses likability and preps a physical response. The system operates at its absolute limit, and at this moment of peak cognitive chaos, the stranger hands you a single, isolated syllable. I'm Kevin. This tiny data packet frequently gets dropped simply because the operating system is already saturated. The name arrives at the exact moment the brain is too busy to babysit it. Names are uniquely difficult because they exist in a semantic void. Kevin doesn't mean anything on its own. It doesn't trigger a visual, a concept, or an existing emotion. In 1987, researchers McWeeny and Ellis illustrated this difficulty through a study that gave us the Baker-Baker paradox. One group learned a man in a photo was a baker by profession, triggering a rich web of associations, bread, warmth, leading to high retention. A separate group was told his last name was Baker. Without context, the isolated label caused retention rates to collapse. A profession provides an immediate hook into existing knowledge. A name is a rootless sound that provides the brain with nothing to hold onto. The brain ruthlessly prioritizes information anchored by context, discarding isolated data points to maintain efficiency. For chronic forgetters, the issue is often tied to social anxiety or hyper-awareness, rather than a lack of interest. These individuals are trapped in an internal monologue, constantly editing their own behavior, checking eye contact, and worrying about their next sentence. This anticipation creates a specific blind spot known as the next-in-line effect, first documented by psychologist Malcolm Brenner in 1973. Brenner found that when people prepare to speak, their ability to retain what the person directly before them said drops to nearly zero. In a social introduction, the anxious mind is already focused on its own upcoming performance. It is essentially elsewhere while the stranger's name is being offered. This constitutes a failure of attention rather than memory retrieval. Because the mind was preoccupied with self-editing, the name was never recorded in the first place. There's a paradoxical strength in this type of mind. People who forget names possess a memory architecture that is exceptionally rich in context and emotion. Consider the memory of a funeral. You likely recall the specific silence, the smell of the flowers, and the weight of a conversation that resonated deep in your chest. You almost certainly do not remember the specific text printed on the order of service. Your brain categorized that as low-priority data. Names function like that order of service, isolated labels lacking the inherent associative richness the brain uses to determine what's worth keeping. The brain's natural filter prioritizes patterns, emotions, and personal impressions, intentionally letting go of arbitrary syllables that lack human texture. Since the brain refuses to file these labels automatically, you have to build a manual workaround to preserve social bonds. Techniques like repeating a name immediately or connecting it to a visual anchor work because they force the brain to create the associations it usually skips. You are essentially constructing a bridge between a meaningless sound and a piece of context the brain already values. It is time to let go of the quiet belief that forgetting a name makes you an uncaring person. Genuinely engaging with a person's story and emotional texture serves as a more accurate gauge of care than the mechanical retention of an arbitrary label. While your brain might drop the label, it successfully captures the essence of the person.